3 Christmases. Not a single phone call, but the wedding invite had gold trim. That's how it started. Not with a betrayal, not with a slap in the face, but with silence. Silence so clean and cold it could cut bone. My name is Franklin Roach. I'm 72 years old, and I live alone on the edge of a town no one rich can pronounce. Haverford, Pennsylvania, not the fancy part. The working side. The side where porches creak and people still shovel their own snow. My daughter's name is Elaine. She married into a family that sends holiday cards printed on thick ivory paper with no return address. I haven't been on that list in years. You want to know the last thing she said to me before she disappeared into their world? Dad, just try not to embarrass me at the reception, okay? Reception, not wedding. She was already putting me outside the picture before the photos were taken. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. The man she married was named Brent Calloway. Stockbroker. Smile like a magazine ad. Family money from Connecticut, you know the type. His handshake felt soft. Not weak, just, and used. Not like hands that fixed roofs or changed their own oil. Hands that only held pens and wine glasses. From the second I met him, I knew I was a liability in his eyes. Elaine changed the moment they got engaged. No more homemade dinner talks. No more visiting my house on holidays. She started calling me father instead of dad. Started wearing pearls to go to the grocery store. And worst of all, she stopped asking how I was. I wasn't rich. Never claimed to be. I ran a car parts shop for 37 years. Roach Auto Supply, big red letters, peeling from the front window, but always open on time. Elaine grew up behind that counter, doing homework while I sorted spark plugs. She used to say she loved the smell of motor oil because it reminded her of me. Then she married into money, and suddenly, I was something to hide. I wasn't presentable. I didn't fit their family brand. She stopped inviting me to dinners. Stopped answering my calls. 3 Christmases came and went. No card. No text. No Merry Christmas, Dad. But I watched her smile on social media, in silk gowns beside Brent's parents. Perfect family portraits. Perfect captions. Not a wrinkle of guilt on her face. She abandoned me, and I stayed quiet, until the knock came. It was late March. Cold rain outside, wind whipping around the corner of my porch like it wanted to peel the siding off. I thought it was a delivery at first, maybe something I ordered and forgot. But when I opened the door, Elaine was standing there. No pearls, no makeup, no umbrella, just soaked to the bone, with eyes so red she looked like she'd walked through hell to get to my front step. I didn't say anything, just stared. She broke the silence with a whisper, Dad. I didn't know where else to go. And that's when I knew. Brent was gone. Something happened. Something big. But before she could speak again, I saw a black car across the street. Tinted windows. Still running. And a man in the driver's seat, staring at my house like he had a job to finish. Elaine noticed me looking. I'll explain, she said quickly. Just, please, let me in. I stepped aside. And as she crossed the threshold, dripping water onto my hardwood floor, I realized something deep in my gut. This wasn't just a visit. It was the beginning of a storm. A storm with my daughter at the center. And a quiet plan forming in my mind. They'd erased me once. They were about to find out what happens when the man you abandon doesn't stay buried. She didn't sit at first. Elaine just stood there, dripping all over my floor like a broken pipe. Her coat was too thin for the weather, soaked straight through. Hair stuck to her cheeks. Hands shaking. Not the kind of shaking from cold. The kind you get when the ground disappears beneath your feet. I didn't offer tea. Didn't make a fuss. I just walked into the kitchen, poured black coffee into the mug she gave me 15 years ago for Father's Day, the one she probably forgot existed, and set it in front of her at the table. She finally sat down, fingers wrapped around the mug like it was a lifeline. Thanks, she said, voice thin. The silence that followed could have cut through steel. I sat across from her, watched her try to find the words. It didn't take long. He left me, she said. Brent. Just left. I didn't say anything. She looked up. Are you going to say I told you so? I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. Not yet. It unraveled fast after that. Brent's investments had crashed. Real estate, mostly. He'd poured money into beach properties in Florida with his father's name on the loans. Only thing was the father had already quietly pulled out 2 months prior, left Brent holding the bag. When the storm hit, Brent didn't just go broke. He went nuclear. Filed divorce papers the same day he liquidated his remaining assets. Elaine found out in a phone call. "This isn't working anymore," he said, flat as a dial tone. "You'll be taken care of. But I can't be part of your life going forward." Just like that. No explanation. No tears. No goodbye. The man she left me for didn't even give her the decency of a real ending. I watched her talk, the words spilling out of her like floodwater through a crack in a dam. She told me how Brent's parents had turned on her the moment the money disappeared. They cut her off, froze her out, took back the apartment key and even the Range Rover lease. She was lucky to escape with one suitcase and a handbag that still had his mother's initials stitched inside. But what caught my attention? Her hands. Tiny cuts. Fresh. Not just from the cold. Scratches across her knuckles and wrists. Not self-inflicted. Not old. No, those looked like someone had grabbed her. Tried to stop her. "Who touched you?" I asked flatly. She blinked. Looked down. Tried to hide them. "It was nothing. L. Who touched you?" She looked away. I had to go back to the condo to get some of my things. Brent's assistant was there. He said I needed to leave. I tried to get to the bedroom and he blocked me. I clenched my jaw. "And he put his hands on you?" I said it was nothing, Dad. No, it wasn't. You think you can show up here, tell me everything that's happened, and expect me to pretend this is just something we ride out? Her eyes welled up. I didn't know who else to go to. Of course you did. You knew the one person who'd still open the door. That hit her. Not hard. Just true. She stayed the night. I didn't ask questions. I gave her the guest room, fresh towels, and locked the front door the way I always do. But that night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my study. Lights off. Just me and the creak of this old house. I pulled out the notebook where I keep numbers, notes, old receipts. Pages of names from years ago, some I hadn't called in over a decade. Lawyers. Contractors. A guy named Roy who used to handle discrete matters for people who didn't want problems turning into lawsuits. Elaine thought the storm had already passed. She had no idea. The real storm was about to start. And I was the one bringing the thunder. I waited until she fell asleep. You can tell when a house goes still, not just quiet, but settled. Like the walls exhale. That's when I picked up the phone. Not my cell. The landline in my study. The one Brent and his kind wouldn't think to tap. I called Roy first. "Frank." His voice was
Slower than it used to be, but not soft. "Damn. It's been, 10 years? 12. What's got you calling at this hour? I need a favor." There was a pause. Then a sigh. "Go ahead." Roy isn't a thug. He's not a private investigator either.
He's one of those guys you don't find in any directory, but whose number gets passed quietly between old men who don't want to call the cops. When something gets dirty, you call Roy. I told him the basics. My daughter, Elaine. Her husband, Brent. The assistant who manhandled her at their condo. The financial fallout. But most of all, I wanted dirt. Not tabloid stuff. Real dirt. "Give me names," he said. I did. "I'll start with Brent and his father," he said. "See how far the rot goes. And the assistant? I'll get you a full report. Nothing illegal. Just illumination." That was Roy's favorite word. The next morning, Elaine looked better. She'd slept in, took a hot shower, ate a real breakfast. There was color in her face again. She even laughed once, that same laugh she used to have as a teenager when I'd sneak her out for pancakes on school days. But there was a shadow behind her eyes. A wound she wasn't ready to name yet. She started asking questions around lunch. "Do you still have the shop?" "No. Sold it 6 years ago." "To who?" "Guy named Lindstrom. He runs it with his 2 sons now. Good people." She looked down, picked at her sandwich. "You ever think about starting something new?" I shrugged. I thought about peace and quiet. That's what I thought about. She smiled at that, just a little. Then, I wish I hadn't left like I did. There it was. The closest thing to an apology I'd heard in 10 years. I wish a lot of things, I said. She looked like she wanted to cry again, but held it back. Good. Tears won't fix this. That evening, I got a call from Roy. His voice was sharper now. He'd found something. Brent's not just broke, he said. He's crooked. Real crooked. Go on. Fake investment deals. He used his father's name to get private money, then dumped the assets before they crashed. Pulled cash out, let the investors eat the loss. How much? Somewhere between 2 and 5 million. Depends who you ask. And the assistant? Ex-military. Not clean. Got discharged for misconduct. He's been Brent's fixer for a few years now, keeps people in line. I felt my blood run cold. He laid hands on Elaine. Roy was quiet for a beat. Then he's got it coming. Can you get photos? Already have 'em. Want 'em emailed? No. Print. Delivered. No trace. You got it. I ended the call and stared out the window. Sunset painted the street orange and gold. Mrs. Bloom across the road was watering her flowers, oblivious to the war building inside my house. Elaine didn't know I'd made the call. Didn't know her father was gathering facts like nails for a coffin. But she would. And so would Brent. They took everything from her. Now I'd take everything from them. By Friday morning, the first domino tipped. Clayton filed the protective petition right after sunrise. Local courthouse. Civil division. Case number, timestamp, everything locked in. He also filed a request for injunction. That meant Brent, and anyone acting on his behalf, would be legally prohibited from contacting me or Elaine until further notice. Which meant no late-night visits. No accidental run-ins. No more pressure. The old man had struck back, and the courts were watching. But that was just the opening jab. The real blow came at 2:37 p.m., when the petition became part of the public record. By 4 o'clock, someone had already leaked it to the ledger. By 6:15, it hit their front page. Local investor Brent Calloway faces elder abuse petition, subhead. Documents allege financial manipulation, intimidation, and offshore transfers. Elaine stared at the screen like it was a ghost. They published it. Damn right they did. She swallowed hard. Dad, people are going to read this. Good. Let them. Calls started pouring in. Not to me. To Brent. To his old clients. To his father's friends on the golf course. To his charity contacts. To the yacht club. Reputation doesn't shatter. It shrieks as it falls. By 9 p.m., Brent's LinkedIn was deactivated. By 10:30, someone leaked photos of the offshore property titles. By midnight, his father issued a formal statement of separation from his son's business activities. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Let me say that again. His own father threw him under the bus. Good. That bus was already moving full speed. The next morning, I found Elaine in the living room. Still in her robe. Knees tucked up, coffee untouched. She looked up as I walked in. They're talking about me too now. Her voice was hollow, like the echo of a scream after the walls have stopped shaking. They're calling me the gold digger who lost. I sat down across from her. And? I did choose him. I left you. I left this house. I let them change me. What kind of person does that? I didn't answer right away. I just stared out the window at the lawn I hadn't mowed in a week. The grass was getting long. Finally, I said, "You're not the first person to trust the wrong man." She looked at me. But you didn't just trust him. You married into his world. You put your last name in a box and handed it to him with a bow on top. Her eyes dropped. I know. And yet, I stood, walked to the bookshelf, and pulled down a manila envelope, not one from Roy. One I'd prepared myself. I handed it to her. Inside were documents I'd been updating quietly for years, my will, my trust, and the original incorporation paperwork for Roach Auto Supply. What is this? You don't need to stay a victim. She opened the folder slowly. Her hands shook. Dad, are you giving me? I'm not giving you anything. But I am telling you, if you want to earn your way back, start here. She stared at the papers for a long time. then whispered thank you. But I wasn't done. There's one more thing. What? I want you to meet someone. That afternoon, we drove down to the garage. Lindstrom's sons were working on a lifted Chevy, big job, oil pan replacement. I introduced Elaine to all three of them, then pulled Lindstrom aside. She wants to learn the business. He raised an eyebrow. Your daughter. That's right. He gave me a slow nod. She willing to start with grease under her nails? She won't make the same mistake twice. Elaine stepped forward. I'd like a chance. Lindstrom grunted. Okay, show up Monday, 7 o'clock sharp. I will. As we walked back to the truck, she looked over at me. I won't let you down. I didn't smile. You already did, I said. But you also came back. That night, as we sat on the porch under the spring stars, my phone lit up. Unknown number. I answered. The voice on the other end? Brent. Frank. We need to talk. No apology. No shame. Just panic behind a polished tone. Do we? I said. You've destroyed my name. Do you understand what you've done? Better than you think. This petition, this story, none of it will hold up. It doesn't have to, I said. Because the people you care about already believe it. Silence. Then, you think this is over? I looked out across the lawn, saw Elaine watching me from the window. No, I said. This is where it really begins. The man on the other end of the line didn't speak for a while. I could hear his breath sharp, uneven. Brent was unraveling, but trying not to show it. You've made a mistake, he said finally. You think I'm some kind of cartoon villain, but I had reasons. We always have reasons, I said. So do arsonists. Doesn't mean they get to walk free. You're throwing away your own daughter's future by doing this. I smiled to myself. No, Brent. You already did that. Then I hung up and blocked the number. Elaine heard part of the call. Didn't ask questions. She just sat back down on the porch steps beside me, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. I dreamed about Mom last night, she said. That caught me. She was cooking in the kitchen, wearing that yellow apron with the coffee stains. She looked at me and said, It's okay to come home when you've lost your way. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. Just reached over and squeezed her hand. Some wounds don't need words, just company. Monday came fast. Elaine woke early, made her own coffee, tied her hair up the way she used to when she worked summer shifts at the old bookstore downtown. She left a note on the fridge. Went early. Wanted to beat the noise. That note hit harder than any speech. She wasn't just staying in the house. She was standing up in it. But while she rebuilt. I kept digging, because something didn't sit right. Brent's collapse had been too convenient. Too clean. His father's sudden statement. The assistant's silence. The complete drop-off of any legal pushback. No counterclaims. No threats from lawyers. Just nothing. Men like Brent don't go quiet unless they're building something in the dark. So I called Roy. Told you he'd squirm, Roy said. I think he's hiding something else. Then we flush it out. He got to work. 2 days later, he showed up at my house with a second envelope. This time, no photos. Just documents. Trusts. Shell companies. Account transfers. And at the center of it all, Elaine's name. What the hell is this? Roy looked me dead in the eye. Brent set up a contingency. Months ago. If anything happened to him, legally or financially, a holding account in the Caymans would transfer under her name. Full liability. My chest went cold. You're saying if the feds move on him for tax evasion or fraud, Elaine takes the fall. He put her in front of the train? Exactly. My pulse was hammering. I stood up, paced the room. He did this in advance? He knew his game was House of Cards. Set her up as the last card to fall. And she has no idea? Not unless she signed something in that marriage contract. Of course she had. She trusted him. Trusted the life he built. That wasn't just betrayal. That was premeditated destruction. I drove to the garage. Elaine was under a car with Lindstrom's youngest, grease on her cheek, her laugh echoing against the concrete walls. I waited. She saw me and climbed out, wiping her hands on her rag. Everything okay? We need to talk. Now. She followed me outside, concern rising. What's wrong? I showed her the papers. Her eyes scanned them, then stopped. She went pale. This is impossible. It is, I said. It's real. Roy triple-checked. She started shaking her head. I didn't know. That's how traps work, Al. They don't look like traps when you're happy. She sat on the curb. Couldn't breathe. He was going to let me go to prison. I sat next to her. He was going to let you disappear so he could walk away clean. She looked at me and I saw it. Not grief. Not fear. Rage. What do we do? She asked. I smiled for the first time all day. We pull the thread. I wasn't planning to go back to Clayton's office that week. But when your daughter's name sits at the center of a money laundering ring set to collapse, you don't wait for the storm, you build the lightning rod. We sat across his oak desk, Elaine to my left, hands clenched tight. Clayton didn't blink as he read the trust documents. Well, he said finally, this is sophisticated. That a compliment? I asked. He shook his head. No, it's a warning. He tapped one of the pages. This clause makes Elaine the sole beneficiary and responsible party for the offshore accounts. If this goes federal and you haven't filed an official declaration of fraud, she's the scapegoat. Elaine's voice was tight. So what do we do? You sign this. He slid over a form, voluntary fraudulent transfer disclosure. A statement saying she had no knowledge of the financial scheme, no involvement, and is cooperating with investigators. Elaine read it. Her hands trembled. Then she signed. Her voice was steady when she said, "Now what?" Clayton smiled. Now we set the wolves loose. The next 72 hours moved fast. Clayton forwarded the signed disclosure, along with Roy's evidence, to a senior contact at the state attorney general's office. We didn't go local. We went statewide. Because Brent had stepped out of small-town schemes. This was interstate finance fraud. And now he'd be on the radar of people who wore bulletproof vests and carried badges. Within 24 hours, Brent's accounts were flagged. Within 48, his passport was frozen. And by the third day, there was a sealed warrant. Not for arrest. Not yet, but for seizure. And once federal agents start knocking on corporate doors asking about Cayman accounts tied to a 29-year-old assistant with a dishonorable discharge, you know the house of cards is swaying. Elaine stayed quiet most of that day. She wasn't crying anymore. She wasn't panicking. She was sharpening. The way a person does when they realize they've got one shot left to reclaim who they used to be. At dinner, she finally spoke. You're not just saving me, Dad. I raised an eyebrow. You're saving the part of me I thought I buried 10 years ago. You buried it, but you didn't kill it. She reached across the table and took my hand. I want to testify. I blinked. You sure? I need to. He used me as a weapon. I won't stay silent and let him aim it at someone else. There it was, that same fire I saw in her when she was 19 and stormed into a boardroom full of suits during her first internship to call out a data error that would have cost the firm $80,000. Before the pearls. Before the politics. Just Elaine. Unfiltered. And now, she was back. The last move came that Friday. Roy handed me a USB drive. What's this? I asked. Security footage. One of my guys pulled it off a backup system Brent didn't even know existed. What's on it? He gave me a tight smile. Proof that Brent's assistant didn't just grab your daughter. He threatened her. Verbally. Physically. The whole thing's on camera. My blood boiled again. You sure it's clear? Crystal. Audio too. And admissible? Better. It's public relations gold. I stared at the little black drive in my hand. You want me to leak it? Roy asked. I shook my head. Not yet. Waiting for something? I nodded. The perfect moment. Because sometimes, revenge isn't just justice. It's timing. It was the fundraiser. Black tie. Spotlights. Cameras. The kind Brent used to live for. A sleek hotel ballroom in downtown Raleigh. Polished tables, branded cocktail napkins, and the usual parade of smug handshakes. Brent was scheduled to speak at 8:15 p.m. sharp. The theme? Restoring trust in community finance. I nearly laughed when I read the program. Elaine and I weren't invited, of course. But Roy was. Roy's got friends everywhere. And he brought a gift. The USB drive. The moment Brent stepped up to the podium, smiling in a borrowed tux like the wolf who'd just found the back gate open, Roy handed the tech crew a flash drive labeled Presentation Backup Final. They didn't question it. No one ever questioned someone in a suit holding a bat-shaped name tag. The projector flared to life. Everyone expected pie charts. Instead, footage. First, Brent's assistant grabbing Elaine's arm outside that lawyer's office, yanking her toward a car. The room fell silent. Second, a recorded phone call. Brent's voice. She's got to sign it. I don't care how. Just make it happen. The audio was clean, loud, undeniable. Third, a Cayman account spreadsheet, with Elaine's name on top. And finally, a single sentence, white letters on black screen. This is how he treats family. Then the screen went black. Silence. Then murmurs. Then a slow, gathering storm of movement, people getting up, whispering, pulling out phones. By the time Brent stepped off the stage, 3 people had already left the table he was seated at. 2 were major donors. 1 was his father's attorney. The fallout was fast and permanent. By Monday morning, Brent's name was removed from the board of his own company. His assets were frozen. Elaine was cleared publicly by the Attorney General's office. An arrest warrant was issued for Brent's assistant, who tried to flee the state and failed. The assistant flipped. Within 48 hours, he handed over everything. Emails, voice memos, contracts, a trail that led straight to Brent. And that, as they say, was that. Elaine testified 2 weeks later. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize for her past. She sat straight, spoke clearly, told them who she used to be, who she became, and how it almost ruined her. When she stepped down from the stand, I stood to hug her. She whispered, "I'm free." I nodded. "You earned it." That summer, we reopened Roach Auto Supply with a new logo and a fresh sign. Elaine managed the front office. I stayed in the back, still fixing the kind of engines most people gave up on. Sometimes people came in just to shake our hands, said they read about us, said we gave them hope. I didn't want thanks. I wanted peace. And I had it. Not because Brent was gone, but because the lie was dead and the truth, my truth, had stood taller. One afternoon, Elaine walked in, grease on her cheek again. Guess who just called? Who? Roy. Says the assistant's lawyer is trying to negotiate a plea. What kind? Cooperation. Full confession. Maximum exposure. I nodded slowly. Tell Roy we accept. She smiled. You're really okay with all this being over? I thought for a second. No, I'm not okay with it being over. I'm proud it ended the right way. She leaned in and kissed my forehead. I love you, Dad. I know, I said. And I finally believed it. My daughter chose money. My grandson chose truth. And I chose not to stay quiet. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments.